Washington, D.C., Colorado, and traveling with teenagers, as some of you may know, before the year 2001 was a little different compared to today. This was before everybody had cell phones, and you actually interacted with one another as you traveled. Now, the first few hours of traveling with students is pretty normal. It was loud, kids were squirrely, and right around the 5th or 6th hour, they started getting a little bit bored, and they began asking the famous question. Do you know what that question is then?
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? How much longer? And with working with volunteers, it was part of our training, or part of my job was to train them to do these trips. And so I would train them. Whenever a kid would ask, are we there yet? Or how much longer? You would just say, 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes would go by, and they would say, are we almost there? It's been 20 minutes, how much longer? And you would say, 20 minutes. And then they would say, but that's what you said 20 minutes ago. Yeah, you're right, it's 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes later, they would ask again. It would take them a little over an hour for them to figure it out. And they would catch on that we weren't going to get to our destination anytime soon. So, and it was right about this time, after they figured out we weren't going to get there anytime soon, that one of the students gets the big idea of singing. And not just singing, but singing theme songs from every TV show that they could possibly think of. Let me see how good you are. Here's a story.
Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch. I don't even need to finish the sentence. Sunday, Monday.
Happy Days.
Happy Days. Shamil, Shemazel, Haz and Pepper, Laverne and Shirley. Come and knock on our door. We've been waiting for you. Three's Company? Did somebody say that? Yes, Wendy, good job. And then, of course, the all infamous, just sit right back and you hear a tale.
Gilligan's
Gilligan's Island. Did you know that you can sing the Gilligan's Island theme to Amazing Grace? Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see. That was always a good one. And these were our travel songs. They were our travel songs, and it passed the time and helped us bond on our way to and from our destinations. Our scripture today is Psalm 121, and it is a song. We do not know the writer, but what we do know is that this particular psalm is part of a collection of ancient songs called the Songs of Ascent. Psalm 120 through Psalm 134 are a collection of pilgrim songs used by people journeying from Jerusalem to their home, or from their home to Jerusalem. And they were travel songs. This psalm has the feeling of movement. I want you to picture with me. Picture with me a family. A family of travelers walking down a dirt road towards the hills of Jerusalem. A husband and a wife and their 2 small children, both under the age of 5. They're going to a festival. They're going to Jerusalem. This happens 3 times a year, and this family takes the same road, the same journey to Jerusalem. It's a commitment that they made. And this journey is not done alone. Caravans of people traveled together as they walked this pathway towards the hills of Jerusalem to participate in these festivals. It was their heritage. It was their way of life. They watched their steps as they walked because the rocks and the tree roots coming up from the path, they couldn't trip. If they got hurt, it would be disastrous for their journey. So they must be careful. The day grows hotter and the sun rises higher. The day grows hotter as the sun rises hot. Let me say that correctly. The day grows hotter as the sun rises higher. Say that 5 times really fast. It will take a few days to get where they're going. And they even might have to travel in the nighttime. There's so many dangers. Heat exhaustion, predatory animals, thieves, and then someone starts singing. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. And as these travelers lifted their eyes to see the hills, what did they feel? Did some feel anxiety in the middle of their journey? Were there some traveling with their elderly parents who were struggling to keep up with everybody? Or maybe some had infants who were with them, who were hungry and tired and crying. Was there worry in their hearts because it was a difficult trip? Or did some see and feel the excitement of their destination? They were traveling to Jerusalem. This was Zion. This was the city of David. This is where God dwells. They have been waiting and preparing for this festival for months. And now they are on their way. I'm going to back up out of this visual for a minute, okay? We're not going to have that visual for a little bit. And I would love to explain to you more about what these festivals were. There were 3 of them. The first one was in the spring. It was called Passover. Now, many of us have heard this Passover word, and maybe even this was one of the festivals. But this is one of the festivals that they journeyed to every year. It was in the spring, and it lasted for 8 days. It was a celebration of the first grains that ripened, and their first grains were barley. And also, it was the remembrance of how God freed their people, the Israelites, from the slavery under Egypt. This was the first festival of the year. Then, in late spring and early summer, they traveled again for a 2-day celebration called the Festival of Weeks. This was also a 2-fold celebration. It was to celebrate the wheat harvest, but it was also to remember the time when God gave Israel the Torah, the law, from Mount Sinai. And then, in the fall, they traveled once again. This time, it was for 7 days. It was a 7-day festival in Jerusalem. The Festival of Booths, Booths, or the Festival of Tabernacles. It was the end of harvest time, but it was also the remembrance of their ancestors, the Israelites, who were in the desert, and how they lived in fragile dwellings called booths. This was their way of life. It was embedded into their culture. And it was important to make these journeys to celebrate these festivals. Now, back to our visual. Maybe the first few hours were pretty normal. It was loud, kids were squirrely, but around the 5th or 6th hour, maybe some of the children started getting bored, and they began asking, how much longer? Are we there yet? Maybe some of the Israelites answered 20 minutes, just 20 more minutes, knowing that it would be another 10, maybe 12 hours at least, maybe an overnight trip. Would these kids catch on that they weren't going to get to their destination anytime soon? Then one of the elders begins to sing. Not just singing, but singing a song of ascent. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Can you imagine them singing? He will not let your foot slip. He who keeps you sustained, he who keeps Israel safe, will neither sleep nor slumber, will neither sleep nor slumber. Those familiar with the song join in, and soon the pathway and the trail is filled with the ringing of this song. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. These songs were more than just traveling songs. They were reminders of who Israel's God is. They were reminders of God's character. And in this particular song, God is their keeper. The writer of the psalm really wanted to drive that point home. He used the word keep 6 times in 8 verses. What we read every week is called the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version. And the New King James Version uses this word keep as well. But in the verses 7 and 8, this version has the word preserve instead of keep. The Message uses the word guard and calls God our guardian. And the Contemporary English translation uses the word protect and calls God our protector. What a great song to sing on a long journey full of potential dangers. What a great song to sing when somebody needs to remember that God is our creator and our sustainer, our stabilizer, and our shield. This ancient song can ring true today in our own lives. Life is a journey, and it is full of potential dangers. Where do we look to for help? Do we look to God? When you feel like everything around you is not stable, do you see God as your sustainer, as your stabilizer, as your keeper? God does not slumber, and God does not sleep. When we feel like everybody around us is attacking us, when we feel like we need to be protected, do we see God as our shield? God is our shade from the hot, piercing sun. God is our protector and our guardian. There is no place and no time and no circumstance that will be able to separate us from God. And I want to say that again, because that's really, really important. There is no place and no time and no circumstance that will be able to separate us from God. My friends at Union Congregational, let us sing this song in our hearts every day. Preferably not in the Gilligan's Island tune. But let our spirits sing this song as we journey through this life together. Let us remind one another along life's journey that our God's great love for us is so powerful that nothing can separate us from it. Let us remind one another of our great guardian and our protector and our keeper. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.